Seems so far away.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of West Mifflin School District Work Session Agenda Meeting being held in the West Mifflin Area School District Middle School Auditorium, 81 Commonwealth Avenue, West Mifflin, PA 15122. Meeting begins at 6 p.m. Opening exercises, pledge to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Esper, roll call.
Aher.
Here.
Alexandra. Bennett.
Here.
Engler.
Here.
Stelnick.
Here.
Marshall. Mattis.
Here.
Yeah, that's an old one.
Yeah, that's an old. Mrs. O'Leary. Mattis.
Here.
Cosenza. And Blazevich.
Here. Number 2 presentations, Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one presentation tonight. Congratulations to Mr. Nicholas Alexandra for being recognized by the Pennsylvania School Board Association for achieving 8 years of service on our local school board. The honor roll of school board service is the association's way of saying thank you to those individuals who exemplified leadership and statesmanship, giving unselfishly of their time and talents for the future of our public schools and putting something back into their local communities through the guidance of the education of the youth. Presentation B will be at the regular board meeting, and that concludes presentations, Mr. President.
Thank you. 3 addendum items. Do we have addendum items for this meeting?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you. Hearing of the citizens will be in our regular board meeting. No information items. Board Secretary, Business Managers Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a number of items that we'll ask to put on next week's agenda. That will be on next week's agenda for approval under Board of Directors. Number 1, we're going to approve and ratify the school student board representatives, Cassandra Short and Jamie Hill. Item number 2, every year we make a $500 donation to Baldwin EMS, which would cover our employees if they needed an ambulance and didn't have a subscription. Number 3, this is a policy maintenance program participation agreement with PSBA for the school year. Number 4 is the first readings of the policy updates to the 600 series. Number 5 is updates to the 700 series. Number 6 is updates to the 800 series. And number 7 is updates to the 900 series. Any questions?
Mr. Esper, for the policy program, is there an additional fee on top of, I thought we just reviewed it. I was just.
Yeah, this is, yeah, we've already, we paid for this.
Yeah. Gotcha, thank you.
I believe this is, but that's just the general one. We already paid for policy updates.
Under B finance, item number 1, we are asking the board to authorize the solicitor's office to settle a tax bill number BB 21446. We will discuss those amounts in executive session this evening. Item number 2 is the same motion, but different parcels for a combined assessed value of $400,000. We have nothing of receipt purchasing. We'll approve the minutes, reports. As always, refunds subtracted from expenditures. Invoices, we have 2 invoices from Legal Tech Services. Most likely we'll have another 1 or 2 before the meeting. And we have an invoice from McLean Architects for the home wall project. This is just a series of payments until we satisfy what we agree to pay them. They bill us as the project progresses. And number D is McLean Architects. And this was to assess the girls' locker room ceiling repair after we actually repaired it. They came out and made sure that it resolved, everything was up to their standards. Capital Projects Fund.
I apologize, Mr. Esther. The reason why you don't have our invoices is because of me. As you know, I was out and I have to finalize for some time.
Chris, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear.
I'm sorry, the reason why you don't have my invoices on there is because of me. Because I've been out, I have to finalize some time to put on there and finalize the bill tomorrow. So that's why you don't have our invoices from our office, so I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, so number 2 is the second application for the home wall project. And I don't know if you've seen it, it's actually really nice. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And like Sandy's too. Sandy's stops there every morning to take a look at the progress. And that was something that was much needed. And I'm sure that the residents who live across the street are very glad to be there. We had the bills payable and then requisitions other. We did have 2 executive sessions last month, which are properly noted. That sort of concludes my report.
Any questions? 7, District Operations, Dr. Solomon.
Yes, Mr. President, both A and B are relatively the same. One's high school, one is middle school. And these are organizations being volunteer that is part of the PBIS program, the Positive Behavior Intervention System. So I think at this point that they would just like to, recognize some of the students that are helping improve the behaviors in both of the schools. Number 8 would be the superintendent's report. As you can see, B is the student activities. 1 is different various field trips, and 2 is the fundraisers. Going to page number 7. C will be the building and ground, and these are all the building permits as presented, which takes us to, there's nothing from 9 on to 13. So that takes us to 14, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. Anybody have any questions before we jump into the rest? 14, Board President's correspondence. There are none. Executive session discussion. Our executive session will be after this meeting. Board reports, committee meeting reports. We're just going to walk through the committee meeting agenda here and talk through that. So, Dr. Solomon?
Sure. Personnel will be in the executive session. I don't have anything in front of me for the safety and transportation. The building and grounds, Mr. Benson, Chair, we had a tour of our buildings.
Mr. Bennett or Ms. Ziegler, did you want to brief us on that tour and talk about what went on and how good?
I didn't attend. I don't know what they update.
Thank you.
Gina, do you want to fill in or?
On the tour, we visited every building. And Sandy, I don't know if you have an idea as to what is most pertinent on the list that you think needs addressed? I'm sorry, I'm trying to see out.
Yeah, there was a few things that, we pointed out that were completed from the last tour that you guys did. This one, there's a couple items that I'm getting some contractors to look at. One of them is a roof leak. One of the gym boards in the auxiliary gym, one of the boards is sticking up a little bit. So that was the gym that was just done. They're coming tomorrow to fix that board. Some of the capital projects in the future that need done, we pointed out. I think, just looking at this real quick, some of the things that maintenance guys here can do, however, have been very short, and we're trying to get, we're doing an apartment at the high school, so we've been working in there a lot. Some requests by Mr. Souls, we're gonna try to prioritize everything.
What did you say you were doing in the high school?
They're putting an apartment in the high school for,
Yes.
That's what I thought you
Do you
said.
mind if I interject?
no, you should.
Ms. Aaron, what's transparent is there was a special ed grant for the life skills. And after speaking with Mrs. Silvas and our life skills teachers, and also Mr. Souls, Mr. Souls had a apartment for independent living skills. It was at his old school district. And I did some research on it, very interesting, and it was very successful for those students. So using that money that we had through a grant, we're creating a faux apartment that would teach them normal skills, washing dishes, cleaning counters. There's also going to be a vacuum cleaner for carpet and some other things in there. And I saw a picture of it today with the new cabinetry. And was it Brian Thomas that did it? Yeah, Brian Thomas did a beautiful job on that. And when we get a few more pictures, I don't have a problem sending them out. But also, like anything we do, we will invite everybody in once concluded, so you can take a look.
Okay.
One of the things that stood out to me that I thought we needed to discuss more than others was the roof leak, the fire system at Homeville needs replaced, a van for the cafeteria services, and to decide what to do with bleachers at Homeville, whether we replace some or just remove them altogether, which I really don't want to do. So these are things we'll have to need to address.
Some of the work, obviously, for next summer
Yes,
and in
absolutely.
the summertime, so.
Yeah, your summer projects.
Thank you, but I think, for the most part, everybody was pleased with the timings of the buildings and, the way that the buildings are operated. I think everybody does a great job.
Thank you.
Cindy, was the roof leak addressed? Was it found? Was it discovered yet?
We believe now, and I talked to the roofer, I called him and he just called me back. He had to talk to one of his other guys because I had called about that part of the roof. He didn't find any major leaks. We're believing now that it's coming from a rooftop unit that's on above that room. That it's getting into that unit somehow. So we're getting that checked out tomorrow. It really hasn't rained since we had our tour.
Of course.
It rained Friday night, and I don't believe there was anything in the bucket or very little in the bucket. So, we're just gonna keep monitoring it when it rains, but tomorrow, we're having that checked out.
Okay.
Has that been checked for mold or anything?
The room?
That area, yeah.
No.
No?
I mean, there's no apparent mold in that room. I mean, you could see, I mean, it drips on the floor's tile, so there's not a carpet that it's landing on or anything. It would be above the ceiling tile, and the ceiling tile were out, so it was leaking straight into the bucket.
Thank you. Anybody, anything else you want to add on the tour, Gina?
Thank you.
Okay. The other item on buildings and grounds is the recommendation for the Marquee Bill. Did you want to know about that?
This was at last month's voting meeting. We did send out for some bids, and regardless of whoever would do the work, they would still have to use the Nevco parts. And Nevco is not doing the work, it's actually subbed out to a contractor using their parts. So it's my recommendation to dig into it, and hopefully they can repair to it. But I recommend that we.
Is that using Nevco's sub?
Yes. At the quote that Joe has for the.
And then that would be essentially what we would owe as the deductible on the insurance.
Yeah, all we would owe is $500, correct, Joe?
Mrs. Engler?
I believe it's royal signs, but yes, that's fine.
Joe, do you have enough information to put?
Within the athletics and activities, there was two on there. One was an update on the athletic meeting.
Yeah, I was a meeting with the athletic department on Monday, talked about debriefed on the incident Friday at the football game. For folks who weren't there, there was a fight in the stands, and essentially briefed the board on the response to the fight. I was personally 15 feet away from it. The response was very, very, very quick, and commendable by all of our security, police, and West Mifflin police. There will be, I believe, new procedures put in place for all upcoming football games, and that was discussed in that meeting. A few other items were discussed that were more personnel related, and that was basically the gist of the conversation in that meeting on Monday. Go ahead.
As far as the outside organizations using facilities, when it says outside organizations, that's non-school district. And when Mr. Souls comes back, we're going to review the health and safety policy to make it then appropriate to open the doors for non-school district organizations using facilities.
And I think part of the reason why this was under the athletics and activities is, I think we had some correspondence, at least I did, around youth basketball for the winter. And this would have prevented the youth basketball organization from getting permits for the gymnasiums. And therefore, the change in the safety policy will, although opening up permits to outside organizations, they will still have to follow all the COVID protocols in place that we follow on a regular basis. So nothing really changes. It'll be on them to make sure that they follow the protocols in place.
And for technology, we discussed the website purchase in the app last month. And at this point, we just want to finalize a couple last minute things with the company themselves. So at this point, if we could make a recommendation to put this on for the board next week, then this way we could stay right on track with starting this the second semester. Is the goal.
Is the recommendation to purchase the new website technology?
Yes.
We didn't do that in a previous meeting?
Now, we talked pretty much in depth of it.
No, we approved it.
I thought it was on the agenda or our previous meeting.
It was discussed, it never got added to the agenda. We didn't have a contract at the time.
Okay,
Mr. Souls wanted to just bring it up one more time.
I remember we were talking about it at length, so that's fine.
And then next was the education. On here is the Promise Club, and that's what I have described previously during the minutes. The policy, we had the 6 to 900 policies. Mrs. Ahern, I know that you asked some questions. I did have most of the answers. There was one or two I did not. I was going to speak to Mr. Souls about them before I got back to you, because I wanted to have all.
That's fine. As I read through them, I just jotted down things that I was curious about because I wasn't sure if we're meeting some of those policies.
Right, well, I can tell you, they were very good questions.
Okay, thank you.
I sent some questions too to Mr. Madison. I think he's gonna help the committee work.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get them all in by next week, and then I'll sit down with you and Mr. Souls, and we'll iron everything out.
Since he's the committee chair, you can work with him.
It's very good.
I guess going back just to education real quick before we move on. I don't know if folks saw the U.S. News and World Report that Claire Bartles is number 24 elementary school in all of Pennsylvania. I think it's something that's worth being recognized. Homeville's 418 or something. It's not that far behind. So I think it just goes a long way. U.S. News and World Report, they rank colleges, universities, and schools and school districts, high schools, middle schools, elementary school in our district.
Mr. Blazevich, again, on faculty and counselors who volunteered to work with the virus prevention, that's vitally important in today's society.
Thank you, Mrs. Eager. And I think also, just to move back up to athletics, Tanisha Wright is a graduate of West Mifflin, and she's now the head coach of the WNBA team. And if you've read any of the articles recently, there's nothing but wonderful remarks to be said about her. And I think we need to celebrate our successful alumni as they are moving on and making their impact on the world. That they always point back to where they grew up and how they grew up, and we should take pride in that we're producing these wonderful adults. Does anybody else have anything for committee?
Matt, I have something in safety and transportation. I can't believe there's nothing on the agenda.
Okay, Bill.
So we had an incident last week at school where a student that's not even in school took a bus to school and got into a fight with one of our students. That being said, I know I preach about this all the time and not everybody agrees with me, but we need 2 new full-time police officers. And Deb, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes not being the chairman, but I would like to see on the agenda next week, advertise for 2 full-time police officers and the cost analysis of what it would cost us.
Is that something?
Bill, you want two police officers?
Yes, I believe we have 2 very good police officers, who we should have 1 in every school.
Okay, we can put that on the agenda, we just have to ask you, the financial part of it.
We can discuss that too, Mr. Esper, in executive session.
Mr. Madden?
Oh, no, I totally support that. I just think we need to go back and crunch the numbers again, because I think that's why we chose not to refill those positions earlier, but yeah, I totally support that.
Thank you.
Mr. Esper, did you get that? To add that to the agenda for next week?
I thought Mrs. Mashia said we discussed it. Exactly.
We could discuss like this, the terms and what the actual motion will say.
All right, Emily.
We can, just want to look at it, see if there's any interest.
One thing I'd like to add, just about the incident itself that you were discussing, Mr. Bennett. The student was informed to me was a current student that was in a placement, so it wasn't a strange student. It was a student that has gone here, that is attending another school temporarily. So I just didn't want people thinking it was a strange thing off the street.
I wasn't even aware of that, so thank you.
Any other committee, updates? Mrs. Costello, Skills Center, did you want to do that today or next week?
A report will be given next week.
Thank you, Mrs. Costello. 17, Solicitors Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll executive session.
Thank you. 18, Old Business. 19, New Business. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Costello, second by Mr. Bennett.